All right. Welcome to the very first podcast for Ready, Set, Rally. My name is Holly Ferguson. I have been a dog trainer. I'm a retired dog trainer now and behaviorist with about 20 years experience. I've trained over 5,000 dogs. I once had the largest dog training facility in Houston, and I was regularly voted Houston's best trainer. So rally is my passion. I've been doing rally since before the AKC adopted it, and I've been there from the very beginning. So welcome, and let's go ahead and get started and talk about 3 ways to have more fun in the ring and also to increase your scores and increase your time. So if you have any questions during this, you can put them in the chat and I'll address them when I'm done. All right, let's see. When we train for rally, we have to train for 2 things. We have to train behaviors, and we also have to train for in the ring. So you have to make sure that you're hitting both of them. I know many people with very well-behaved, well-trained dogs who are not ready for the rally ring. So we want to make sure that we are ready for the rally ring. And these simple ideas are some of the things that you can do to prepare yourself for the ring. So the first thing we have is leading your dog. When I go to rally trials and I watch people, oftentimes they're not leading their dog from cone to cone. Rally, above all, is a healing race. I mean, you do have to do behaviors in between every time you get to a new sign, but basically most of the course is you healing from sign to sign. Not necessarily healing, though, not in the sense of obedience. So that's important with this. And if you don't have that down, you're going to lose a lot of points. It can be for lack of teamwork, lack of briskness. There are other things that the judge can ding you on. And also your time is going to increase because you're going to be trying to get your dog to come with you as opposed to leading your dog from cone to cone. So the way I teach loose leash walking, and also all the way up, I start this and I go all the way up to an obedience heel, is by leading the dog. And when you're leading the dog, your dog will follow you. I often see people in the ring, like they have their dog down here and they're leaning over and they're like, come on, look at me. Or they're making the little noises because we can communicate as much as we want, but little noises are not communication. And as they do that, as they lean into their dog, as they kind of like move over towards the dog, one of the things that they're doing is pushing the dog back and slowing the dog down. So if you need to stand up tall and walk forward, your dog's going to walk with you. Even if your dog sniffs, oftentimes dogs are sniffing because you are hovering over them. And I want you to think about if you've ever been around somebody who is like larger than you, and they come up to you and they kind of hover over you and you kind of shrink back. That's what we're doing to the dogs. So in order to teach the dog to come with us happily, head up, tail wagging, full of confidence, instead of sniffing around trying to like remove themselves from the situation where you're just hovering and they feel uncomfortable, is to just ignore the dog. And I do an exercise called targeted walking. And with targeted walking, I start with the dog on a loose leash, and I hold my leash not like this. So a lot of people hold like this, and the leash can go through, and you have to hold tight, and you end up once that hand tightens up, like the whole body starts to tighten up, with the whole arm on up to the shoulder. I sit there with clients and I watch it happen with new clients all the time. So we want to relax our arm. And the way we can do that is to hold the leash like we're holding on to a purse or a briefcase. So this is the dog down here. The leash is coming out from my pinky. And then I can just relax my arm down so that I don't have to pull. The leash is crimped. The dog's not going to pull away. And I can just relax. And when I'm working with dogs, my hand is often holding the leash just like this, like hardly any pressure at all. And then if the dog were to move away from me, all I have to do is tighten up just a little bit. But I relax my arm and my hand. I relax my arm. And then the dog can relax. If you're pulling on the dog, dogs have an opposition reflex. And that opposition reflex forces them to pull the other way. Unfortunately, people have an opposition reflex too. So when our dogs pull on us, we want to pull back the other way. And then the dog pulls more than we pull more. And we end up with this horrible situation of the dog learning that they're supposed to be pulling. So we're going to change that up by holding our leash a little differently, relaxing our arm as much as we can so that the dog can relax also. When you start with targeted walking, you're going to wait until your dog is ready to walk. Each exercise, if your dog is focused on something else, if your dog is pulling away any direction, and because my arm is relaxed, if my dog moves away, my arm will go with him. So, and then I'm going to use movement to get him back. So I'm never going to pull him with my arm. But you're going to wait until your dog sits by your side and looks up at you. And it can just be for a second at the beginning. We don't move forward until the dog is ready to give us some attention. Once the dog looks at you, you're going to look at where you're going. And with Rally, it's the next cone. When you're practicing, you can put the cone, you can start with 6 feet away. So dog looks at me, my shoulders are always forward. They're like headlights, if you've ever heard that before, and they're just shining on the target that I'm going to. If you're outside, it can be trees, it can be another sidewalk, but you're not going to take your eyes off of that target. It's very hard. Even if you don't do it, next time you go to a rally trial, watch other people in the ring, and people are watching their dogs. Their heads going back, their shoulders going back, they're coming down and they're hovering again. And that's especially bad, like if you're used to leading your dog or luring your dog, not leading, we want to lead. If you're used to luring your dog, your body language does this type of thing, which pushes the dog back. So now we're facing forward. We're not looking at the dog. The dog, the only thing we're requiring of the dog is to be there. They're being at the end of the leash. It doesn't matter if the dog is in heel position at this point. It doesn't matter if the dog is paying attention, because at this point, we're doing 2 things. You're learning how to lead your dog. And your dog is learning that you're not going to hover over him and that he can look at you and he can walk at a brisk pace. So once your dog is settled, you're looking at your target. You're going to, without looking at your dog, say, let's go, and you're going to take off briskly. And by briskly, I mean fast enough that your dog has to work to keep up with you a little bit. Because if they have to work to keep up with you and they're walking faster than their normal pace, their head can't go down and they can't sniff. I mean, you can try it. Walk slowly along the sidewalk and then pick up your pace. And the first thing you're going to do is look up, because you have to see where you're going. Once you're moving faster, you have to see where you're going. It's the same with the dog. So the dog's head comes up and they start to walk at a brisk pace with you. Now, you're going to walk until you get to that cone. And while you're walking, you're going to say, good dog, because remember, our standard for the dog for this exercise at this point is to just be on the end of the leash. And unless he slipped his lead, you're fine. He's fine. So you're going to say, dog's name. My dog's name is Flitzer. Flitzer, let's go. Arm relaxed. I take off. Good girl, good girl, good girl. That's a good girl. Good girl, good girl. And then I stop at the net right before the next cone and I pop a treat in her mouth. So there's no luring. There is no kind of like begging. You're not begging your dog to come along with you. You are leading your dog and your dog is following you. And I can guarantee the first time you do this, your dog's head's going to come up. If you do it right, if you ignore the dog and you look at where you're going and you walk briskly, your dog's head's going to come up and they're going to be almost where they need to be. Now, if you're outside and a squirrel runs by, there might be an issue with that. But basically, in a normal situation, your dog's going to be right there with you. So that's the first thing that I teach people to have more fun and do better in the ring. Now I'm not frustrated. I'm not cajoling. My dog's not sniffing. He's not ignoring me. We are walking together from one cone to the next. And then I start to make the cones further and further apart and put cones in between and do a lot of these targeted walks where all I'm doing is requiring the dog to be at the end of the leash, and not a tight leash, but the leash won't be tight. The dog's going to be walking with you. If the leash is tight, I would suggest you stop, but it very seldom happens. Once you start walking at that brisk pace, facing forward, your dog's going to come with you. So that's number one, targeted walking, leading your dog from cone to cone. The second thing that I see all the time that increases time a lot and people end up losing a lot of points, especially if a sit is required, is that dogs don't sit automatically mostly in the rally ring. So you go from one cone to the next and you get there, and the first thing your dog has to do is sit, even if it's just as simple as a sit halt. Okay, but so many of the signs, your dog has to sit. So we want to teach the dog to sit automatically when you stop. Going to address very quickly about, hi, new people. If you have questions, be sure to put them in the chat and I'll address them at the end. So let's go back to, if your dog doesn't need to sit, then what I do, and there are other options that you have, is that if I'm walking along and I get to a sign where my dog shouldn't sit, I change my footwork, which we'll go over in a second, but I also use the command wait, which means stop all forward movement. And that way the dog is doing this other command and knows not to sit. So stop all forward movement. She just stops in a stand, and then I can do whatever the sign says. Hold on. All right. So the way I teach an automatic sit is, first of all, I do what's called a shuffle. You're not really shuffling, but I just call it that so people know what I'm talking about. If you are walking briskly, which you should be in the rally ring, unless you're doing a slow, you should be going briskly, right? So if you're walking at a brisk pace, try to stop without making smaller and smaller steps. You're going to fall over. Naturally, when we go to stop, we kind of slow down for a few steps. So that's what the shuffle is. And it looks like this. Let's see if I can get my feet in the picture. So, let me start. Okay, we got this. Let me start over here. So I'm like, big step, medium, small, almost nothing. Okay, so let's try that again. I'm walking along heeling, so I'm heeling back, or, loose leash walking, whatever you're doing. So I'm heeling back here, and I continue on big step, small step, very small step, almost nothing. And that's the cue to your dog that you're going to be stopping so he can adjust his pace and stop with you. It's a good cue, but it's also just kind of polite. Like your dog slows down a little bit when he has to stop, just like we do. Also, once you change your pace, your dog's going to look at you like, oh, okay, something's going on. So you're walking briskly and suddenly you slow down and you take these small steps. And then your dog knows that there's something going on, and you'll get your dog's attention without having to ask for it, which is important because his job is to give you his attention. It's not your job to constantly ask for it. So once you do those 3 small steps at the beginning, you're just going to stand there looking straight ahead, ignoring your dog, and you're going to wait for a sit. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter where the sit is. It doesn't matter if the sit is straight, because we're just learning this behavior and we've got plenty of time to mold it. You're just going to stand there as soon as your dog sits. Good dog, pop a treat in their mouth. Let's go and take off again like a targeted walk. All of your walking should be like a targeted walk at this point when you're training for the ring. And then you take your smaller step, almost non-existent step, and you wait. And when your dog sits, you pop a treat in his mouth. Now, some dogs will sit right away, even if you're used to telling them to sit when you stop. because they kind of have the idea. And once you start rewarding it, they're going to do it more and more. Some dogs will be a little bit confused. They might just kind of look at you like, I'm not quite sure what we're doing here because you're not saying that S word and I don't know what to do. But a dog's default position is kind of a sit. So after they stand there for a minute, they're going to sit, and then you reward that behavior. And as you reward that behavior more and more, it's going to come faster. It's going to come more often. And when they get faster, they're going to sit straight and they're going to be right next to you. At the beginning, when they're confused and there's a time lapse, they may walk in front of you. They may walk over and look this way. So they may even turn around. But the point is, you're going to reward that sit. And then as they start to get it, as you start to do that shuffle, they're going to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And their rear end is going to start going towards the ground as you start that shuffle. And when you stop, they're going to be in the sit. So you've saved a little bit of time if your dog sits the first time you ask him. So you get to the next cone, and then you have to go sit. That's a fraction of a second. Maybe your dog sits, maybe it's a second, but you do that times 12, and then you've got 12 seconds added onto your time. If your dog is already there, then you've taken those off. Now, a lot of dogs don't sit on the first command, and I have seen so many people stand there at a sign and go, sit, and then they do kind of a fake little lure thing, trying to look like they're not doing a fake little lure thing. Sit. I've seen people get so frustrated that they push their dog's butt down. And it can take them 5, 6, 7 seconds to get their dog to sit. So if that's you, this is going to shave a whole lot of time off and a whole lot of frustration, because I never see those people who have to keep repeating sit come out of the ring happy, or they don't even look happy in the ring, because nobody goes sit. Like every time you say sit, and again, watch people. I love to watch people. It becomes sit. Come on, sit for me. It always goes down. It's this downward spiral. Each sit is angrier and more emphatic. And so if that's you, that's fine. That's where you're at. And you're going to move forward now. And you're going to not have to tell your dog to sit, and shave points off. And shave points off. And shave time off. There we go. So that, and then you're going to come out of the ring happier, and your dog's going to be happier. Once you do that downward spiral with the sit, like the dog's not happy either. So that's why this is titled How to Have More Fun in the Ring, because that's the whole point. When you do rally, you want to have fun in the ring. But if your dog is sniffing and moving away from you, not paying attention, not following commands, it's really not that fun. So the more you train, the more efficient your training is, and the better trained your dog is, the more fun both of you are going to have. It's just a fact. And that's why I really like to see well-trained rally dogs, because they come out of the ring just as happy as their owners are. So that kind of leads in nicely, a nice segue into the third thing, which is don't repeat commands. I start this with all of my training. That's one of my fundamental rules of training. It's one of my training commandments from the very beginning. We don't repeat commands. And so a lot of people don't train that way, and that's okay. But then you have to work away from that. So if you're going sit, come on, sit, right? That's your dog's doing what your dog has learned to do. You're going to go through that process, and your dog knows at what point you're serious, and that's when your dog is going to sit. Now, sit isn't as bad as down. And so with down, it's not just down. People are, doing the whole signal all the way to the floor and repeating it over and over and over again. And I actually saw one person several times excused from the ring because her dog wouldn't down, and she just kept doing that down. And it was a little teeny hairy terrier. And so we want the dog to obey the first time, every time. And there's no punishment for me. Like, I don't punish dogs. Everything I do is very positive. So what you're going to do is stop repeating commands. And it is that simple. However, you're going to have to wait after you say the command the first time. And of course, you want to start this in training. You don't want to decide, tomorrow to go into the ring and say, I'm not going to repeat commands, because your dog hasn't learned that yet. If you're used to repeating commands, that's what your dog has learned, and that's what your dog will wait for. We want to do that outside of the ring during the week in training. So with sit, I just tell the dog sit, and I use my signal, which is the hand up, and I just wait. And if it's a new dog that I haven't trained yet, and I haven't trained before, I can wait a long time for that first sit. But I never repeat the command, and I always follow through. So that's what you just start doing. And then once your dog seems to get that you're not going to go through that whole commotion, then they're going to start sitting more quickly. And once you see that happening, you're going to raise your standard. So your standard at the beginning is, I'm not repeating, and at some point you'll sit or down or stand or whatever, and then I'll reward you. And that's it. It can take forever. It doesn't matter how they look. It doesn't matter if they give you their attention. That's the first standard for teaching this concept of not repeating commands. And then after they seem to get it, that you're not going to go through that whole process, then you're going to set a time limit on it. And if your dog is really good, and they get it pretty quickly, then you could maybe make it 10 to a count of 10. Don't count out loud though. They'll pick up on that, and they'll wait till you get to 10 every time. But you're going to count to yourself. So you're going to say sit or down, whatever the command is, and you're going to count to 10 to yourself. If your dog sits, good dog, and they get a reward. If your dog doesn't sit by the count of 10, you're still going to wait. But once they sit, you're going to say, okay, and get them up again. No good dog, no treat, but no, punishment either. No leash popping, no pushing the butt down, no yelling at them, no telling them they're a bad dog. They just haven't learned it yet. And so we're going to do it again. Each time you do it, even if they don't do it right, it's a lesson. And I think that's what works with this, is that as we increase our standard, not sitting is as much of a lesson, not sitting within that standard is as much of a lesson as sitting, because what do they learn? No reward. Rewards are the currency of survival when it comes, even food, it definitely is a currency of survival. Play is also, because play is just them. It's just their way of hunting down game. So in their minds, way back when they evolved, chasing is currency of survival, and having food reward is currency of survival. So they learn very quickly, because dogs are smart, that when they do it within that 10 seconds, they'll get a reward, and they'll start doing it more and more often. Now, if your dog is really bad, let's say you have a basset hound. Just joking. If anybody has a basset hound, I am just joking. Not really, but kind of. But if you have a dog that maybe has been reinforced a lot with these repeated commands, you may, after they seem to get it that you're not going to repeat, you may take it to 30 seconds instead of 10 seconds, because we want to make it successful for the dog. And then over the coming days, it's going to be, you're going to shave, if you're 30 seconds, you're going to shave 5 seconds off. Or I should say a count, because we're not timing. So a count. Patty, I'll get to number 1 in just a sec. I'll go back and repeat when I get done. If you're 30 seconds, you may do 25, then you may do 20, then you may do 15, and then 10, and then 5, and then 3, and then 1, until you get an instant sit when you say that command. Same with the downs. Any command that you give your dog, they can learn to do it instantly. It's just taking training a little bit further. So a lot of people, okay, so I say sit, my dog sits. I may have to say it 3 times, but my dog knows sit. Your dog doesn't really know sit. Your dog knows sit, sit, sit. So, so we want to keep pushing that training happily a little bit further and a little bit further. Okay, so I have a bonus one. That's basically the 3 things. So we have lead your dog, targeted walking, and Patty, this will be up online so that you can rewatch that. But the first thing is lead your dog in the ring. The second thing is teach an automatic sit. And this third thing is don't repeat commands. So now I'm going to give you a bonus one. And this helps me a lot. And I noticed, again, I watch people. If you're ever at a rally trial with me, no, I will be watching you. So, but study. Oh, and the people who do really well, I notice they do this too. So the bonus tip is to study the map. When you get there, take a picture of the map. If it's a hard copy, even better. So you're going to kind of go over it in your mind, and then you're going to find the 3 signs that your dog does not do well, the worst signs for your dog. You're going to take those 3, and you're going to practice them happily and quickly with the dog. And then you're going to look for any signs that you may not know. You may be a little confused about. Do I pause? Do I not pause? And you're going to look them up in the rules. Now, you can have your rule book with you, which I have because I write notes. I really am kind of obsessed about all of this. So I have my rule book with me, and my rule book has notes in it. When I get to the map, like all my maps are marked up and everything. And you're going to read through those. If you don't have your rule book, if you have an app, that should have the rules written there. And if you have your phone, you can just look it up on your phone. So, but be aware of the things that are in bold, because those are the principal parts, and you want to make sure you do those right. But anyway, read through so that you understand. And if you're unsure if it's a pause or a halt, then look it up in the rules, put it on the sign, put it on the map, circle that, and write pause really big. So as you look at your map, there's a pause there. Okay, there might be another sign where there's an auto sit, there's a halt. So you circle that and a halt, so that you have an idea when you get in the ring, it's fresh in your mind. You don't have to know all 10 million signs. You just have to know the signs that are on that course for right there. So if you're confused about other, whatever it is, then you can write it on that sign, and you will know the signs that you're about to do for that day. So you don't have all the stuff running around in your head. You have fresh in the front of your mind those signs, what they mean, and how to do them. The last part of this is, once you get in the ring for the walkthrough, you stay in that ring and you keep going until the judge throws you out. And you do whatever it is you need to do, but muscle memory is incredibly powerful. Walking through once and going, okay, I know this, that's fine. But going over, see if you can get through 10 times, right? And then 10 times, your muscle memory, like you're going to get to a sign, you're not going to have to think of how to turn. That muscle memory is going to help you turn. So that is my bonus tip. All right. So that's it for today. And if you would, Patty, like I said, I'll have this up and running hopefully by the end of the day. And if you would be sure to put in the comments, if you've tried it, if you're going to try it, what issues you're having, what you would like to see going forward, and then I can know what's going on. Oh, okay. So Teresa has a question. I will change the way I hold the leash. How do you hold the treat? So I have the leash in the left hand. I have the treat in the right hand. And then the right hand is just by my side. Like the treat doesn't come into it until we're done. So I don't really do any luring at all. And I have a video maybe I'll put it in the description of this, showing me with the same dog doing the same things, luring, I think it's luring, targeting, and just not doing any of that, and how much cleaner and quicker it is when you're not doing any of that. So I don't think about the treat at all while we're doing what we're doing. And then at the end, good dog, reward. And of course, eventually you want to have it so the treats aren't on you. And what I do with targeted walking with that is when it's time for me to have the treats off of me, I'll have them on a table ringside, and we'll finish, and I'll mark it with good dog, and then I'll say, let's get a treat or something like that, and we'll just run over. Yay, everything's exciting. So running is a treat in and of itself. If you've been like working, and then bam, play, that's a treat in and of itself, and then you go over and you get the reward. So that's how I start taking the treats off of me. But the treats are never a part of it, except a reward, for me, at least. I have a few exceptions, like when I first teach the down, the first session, I lure. But after that, there's really not a whole lot of luring. There are exceptions to the only say a command once also, but I don't think any of that I don't think I use any of that in rally. I use it in agility and tricks. So, but that's if there's constant movement, like with the weave pole, it'll be like weave, 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 weave. And so, but that's kind of like one weave, one weave, one weave. Anyway. All right. So I guess that's it for today. Be sure to be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I'm planning on doing this almost every Friday. If you hit the notification bell, you'll know if I'm doing it that Friday. Sometimes I travel, so there may be some weeks that I don't do it. I also have a podcast for behavior, and I'm going to do a third podcast for pet dog training, which actually will have some interesting information beyond training for the ring. So subscribe, hit the bell, share, tell your friends, and give me feedback. Let me know how you liked it, what you want to see, and if you've used this and it's helped you at all. So, all right, again, thank you, and we'll see you next week. Let's see, what's the topic next week? Oh, I forgot. You'll have to watch. You have to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Then you'll know what the topic for next week is. So, all right, you guys have a great day. If you've got trials coming up, good luck and enjoy your dogs. Thanks. Bye-bye.